Welcome to The Dynamic, where we explore the world of business leaders crafting great businesses, relationships, and adventurous lives. I'm your host, Aaron Osgood. Let's go.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to have Alan Underwood joining me today from, I believe you're over in Arizona. Super excited to talk to another real estate entrepreneur, a pilot, family man, and really excited to have you join me today, Alan. And if you could, wouldn't mind just kind of starting us off by telling us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Aaron. I've been looking forward to this conversation. The only way to make it better, I think, is if we're flying in together somewhere and meeting up at an airport side restaurant or something. Yeah. So where I'm at right now, I guess, is a good place to start. I run an investment fund, a real estate investment fund in San Diego. We invest in ADUs there, so single family properties, and then developing ADUs and then flipping those, raising capital right now for that. And that's been a new addition to my real estate journey, has been creating an investment fund and managing that. When I'm not doing that, then I've got 5 of the 8 kids that are still at home, and we homeschool. So they're in the kitchen right now, knocking their work out, getting school done. And I'm in the home office getting the work done. That's been a great transition the last couple of years, to be working from home rather than leaving every day. And I'd say I've got my oldest daughter is married in Idaho. The next son is in flight school, actually working towards becoming a commercial pilot. And that's been an awesome journey with him to, when he's gone up and done his away from airport solo and stuff, I fired up the Bonanza and chased him around in the sky a little bit. And that's just been such an amazing experience. And then my next daughter is a cosmetologist, and she and I are actually working. She's 19 and we're working together to buy her first investment property right now. So I'm super excited to lead her along in that journey.
Well, so what's the age gap between oldest and youngest?
My oldest will be 23 next month. Will be 23, and my youngest just turned 8.
Awesome.
We've got a 15-year spread there.
Awesome. That's amazing, man. That's cool. But yeah, so kind of getting into the ADU business, I think that's so fascinating right now with all the challenges with, housing affordability and whatnot. Can you kind of explain what it is you're working on and kind of how are you making it work?
Yeah. So you mentioned the problem that we're solving for. So they're not making any more land in San Diego. You've got Mexico to the south, so you can't go any further south. You got Camp Pendleton and the other military bases to the north. Obviously the Pacific Ocean to the west, and to the east, you've got mountains. So, they're really the only option is to go up or to add additional dwellings to existing homes. And that's what we're doing there. So we're buying a single family residence. The average deal, you've got about $1 million acquisition on the main home. And then you'll take 6 to 9 months to get permits, another 3 months for construction. And the investment is really simple. It costs $250 to $300 a square foot to build. And that constructed property is then worth somewhere between $700 and $1,000 per square foot, depending on what neighborhood and how you finish it out. And so if you can manage the wait period and the construction process, then it's just math at that point. You can double or triple the dollars that you're putting into the property in a fairly short amount of time. And that's what we're inviting investors to participate in. So
how did that kind of idea, start, or, where did that originate from?
Yeah, that's the beauty of GoBundance. So we joined that mastermind in October and got put into a small group, a pod, with my partner in San Diego. His name's Christian Ballou. And I watched what he was doing, became familiar with that. And as he and I got to know each other, he recognized my career has always been starting businesses and growing them and then selling them. And I loved what he was doing. I was already I'd already been working on putting together a fund and just didn't have a deal that I loved enough to bring investor capital to. And so when I saw what he was doing and the potential for the returns there, with our investors right now, we're projecting a 35 to 42% return on their investment within 12 to 20 months. So it was just a great upside. Christian's been doing that over and over again. Add $5 to $10 million to his personal portfolio in the next 12 to 18 months. And it has been a great partnership so far.
Yeah, it's great. And then do you think this is something that is going to scale outside of San Diego?
It already is. So I've had conversations with other members of that mastermind. One guy in LA that's doing the same thing or something very similar, somebody else in Seattle. So anywhere where you have a very high cost of housing and limited ability to build, this is going to be something that is just going to be part of the solution going forward. We really see it as the future of housing in San Diego, where, our avatar on the sale, when we're selling the properties, is really families that need to bring in some additional income from their property in order to be able to afford to live in San Diego. There's also great investment opportunities if somebody's looking to invest, but I think that's going to be something that is going to need to be adopted and is being adopted in coastal cities like San Diego and other places where you just don't have the ability to build. Phoenix may get there someday, but we have so much open space around us that you just don't have the same compression issues.
Yeah. So was any talk about, hold this? So it sounds like kind of the model is buy the single family house, build the ADU, and then sell. Is there any chance or that you guys are looking to hold or maybe long-term rent them or like use Airbnb models at all? Or has that been part of it or is it strictly sale?
Yeah. So Christian's portfolio is he's holding everything. When we looked so Christian's got a degree he's got an MBA in finance and I've got a degree in accounting. And so we spend a lot of time looking at different scenarios. And because you have so much value add when the construction is finalized, what we were looking at is, those 35 to 42% returns in the first year and a half to 2 years. And then after that, pretty minimal returns. And looking at that from the investor standpoint, while there could be some value in maybe selling a few of the properties and holding the rest, we felt like we could do better for the investor by selling all of the properties and then allowing them to roll their investment over and just repeating that process. So, a typical multifamily investment hold will be 5 to 10 years. In 5 to 10 years, we can cycle through 4 or 5 of these funds. And, it's just, if you can do 150 or 200% for people over that time period, that's, to me, a better play for the investor than having all of that equity locked up potentially for a long period of time. And then for us on the GP side, the question became, if we can push big returns into that first year and a half or 2 years where, you're going to be making people really happy, well, then you have the opportunity over the next several years, if you're not producing great return, to make them unhappy. So I'd rather keep the investors happy and keep the money rolling over. Personally, I'll be holding some properties out there, probably some short-term rentals and then, midterm with the ADUs. That's personally what I'd like to be doing. I've got some projects in Phoenix that I'm working on exiting. Before that, I've got a 91 apartment complex that we're working on, some commercial properties that are up for sale that once those sell, then I'll be more invested personally in San Diego as well.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you got a good mix of stuff. And so what do you see your business in 5 years?
Well, in 5 years, so our goal with these ADUs is 100 properties or $200 million worth of development in the next 3 to 5 years. So the next 5 years for me will be building out that business and fully focused on doing that. I think during that time period, for my family, we're in a really, maybe there's not a time that isn't critical with kids, but when I look at my kids, the oldest who's at home is 17 and the youngest is 8. So we're going to have a whole lot of teenagers. And, that's one of the reasons why I love what I'm doing with the fund is I loved what I'm doing at creating over and over again, taking, an older property, renovating it, building. And that to me is really gratifying and a lot of fun. The fact that I can do it from home and be with my family is the biggest thing. There's traveling that I would like to do with my family. So I see that being a big part. And that was something that previously in other businesses that I've done that I was not good at. I was gone way too much and I missed for my older kids a lot of their growing up. I just don't want to make that sacrifice again.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you kind of have a unique perspective because, because you do have, 8 kids and you kind of went through it with a couple and you could see what worked, what didn't work, or what you liked, what you didn't like, thinking that you maybe missed a few, times or, with them. And a lot of people though, the reality is they might only have 2 kids and like, that's, they don't have the opportunity then to be like, all right, you know what? I actually really do want to focus on working more from home so that I, with these other 6, then we spend a lot more time together. So yeah, it's really kind of a unique perspective on having a lot of kids, whereas that you're going to learn a lot, just like we learn in business. Like, hey, I can be a better dad, by doing X, Y, and Z. So very, very interesting there. Yeah.
So I was just going to say my oldest son just the other day we were talking and we've talked a lot about how much I was gone previously. And a lot of that is just due to the way I was raised. Both my dad and my grandpa taught me that the way to find success in business was to show up early, stay late, and outwork everyone else. And so that's what I did. And it really wasn't until the last few years that I realized that maybe there's a better way of going about it. What they taught me served me well, and I'm grateful for it. The and connector there should have been some more balance. My oldest son was telling me thought his first memory of doing something with me was jumping on the trampoline in our backyard when he was 6 or 7 years old. And that I was just gone too much. I would leave before they were awake and I was back home after they were asleep. And I just missed a lot of really valuable time with them.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think got to help you realize that? I mean, do you think, was this anything to do with joining masterminds or is this kind of a self-realization?
Mastermind came after. What really brought awareness to that is in 2018, we lost my mother-in-law very unexpectedly. 2019, my father-in-law, and in 2020, my dad, who was only 66, had a massive stroke and passed away. And, I kind of looked up at that point and realized, wow, I'm 46 right now. Yeah. So I was 43 at the time. And I thought, wow, like that's not that far away. 23 years can go really quick, especially if you look at it from the standpoint of, is that 23 summer vacations? Is that 23 Christmases? And I realized that, I needed to make some changes. And so I actually ended up selling the business that I had at the time and focusing on making some changes. That was some huge adjustments for me personally to do that. I felt like a fish out of water being at home. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what my place at home was. And so that's been a big learning curve. And then joining GoBundance and seeing other ways of succeeding financially and as a dad, as a husband, and relationships has been so life-changing. The last 10 months of my life, there has been more learning and growth than maybe the whole 45 years before that.
Right. Wow. That's awesome, man. That's great. It's, what an incredible, shift. And yeah, it's like they do say, right. And sometimes out of darkness comes a lot of light and, obviously lots of loss there those few years, but, it probably, if that doesn't happen, maybe you're spending more time, running away and you're missing a lot of great memories with your family. So yeah, man, great job, getting out of the muck and figuring this stuff out. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think the figuring it out is just an ongoing process, right? I don't think I hired my first 2 VAs in the last week. I finally developed the courage or the intelligence, I guess, to hand over some of the stuff that I was doing. So that's an ongoing process to become who I want to become. And a lot of that revolves around making sure I'm like on the screensaver for my phone. All of last year, I had 2 words. It was be there. I just wanted to be very intentional about being there for my wife and for my kids.
Amazing, mate. That's super inspiring. So tell me about, I'm assuming every kid has gone flying with you.
Yeah. Yeah. They all have, they all like it to different degrees. So I would say my 2 oldest boys love it. My oldest son is in flight school, like I, mentioned to you earlier, and he's that super enthusiastic about it, loves to fly. And, that's been just so much fun for me to share that with him. The next son, likewise, I don't think it's a career that he's going to pursue, but loves the adventure of flying. One of my daughters really loves it. And I think everybody else will do it. I wouldn't say that they love it. They don't hate it, but they tolerate it.
Awesome, man. What's your flying history like? How did you get into it? That's probably one of the questions I get a lot too. Is like, how do you get into it? And my answer was like, growing up, I loved Top Gun. I loved going to see air shows. And I was like, I want to like fly in a jet like this one day. And so it's like, I got to start somewhere. So that's usually my answer. I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah. So there's a couple of parts to that. I've always loved planes. I think that started with my grandfather was a master sergeant in the Air Force. And so he worked out at Luke Air Force Base here. I have really vague memories, and I don't know how old I was, of being on the base with him and him putting me in the cockpit of an F-16. And, so that was indelibly impressed on my mind at that time. I can remember growing up, I had a blanket on my bed that was blue with red airplanes on it. So really my whole life, I wanted to fly. When I was 16, I had a chance to take flying. I had a choice. It was either flying lessons or getting my first car. And at the time, it seemed like the utility of a car was probably more in line with what life was handing me at the time. But in retrospect, I probably chose poorly. I should have done flying lessons, but I bought a car, and then, I've always wanted to do it. And that was something I shared with my wife when we got married, but wasn't something she was excited about. She had an uncle who was killed in a small plane crash. And so, that kind of ended that conversation. And then life just went on. I can't say that I ever forgot it. I took my kids to air shows almost every year, sometimes several times a year. I still loved planes. The airfield actually that I fly out of right now has a little park right next to one of the taxiways. And I can remember taking my kids there, and while they were playing at the park, I would be watching airplanes. So I've always been fascinated with it and really just never allowed myself to do it. And really what changed that is after the passing of my in-laws and especially with my dad, I went into a really deep depression, like sleeping in my truck, depressed every day. I was ignoring home. I was ignoring work. I was like almost not functional. And I can remember at that time when it got at my lowest point, I recognized that I was going to have to do something. I couldn't keep living the way that I was. And I was praying about it. And I wrote down on a note card, I still have the note card here in my office. I wrote down, there's 3 miracles that I need from God. I need to feel happy again. I need to feel like my life has some kind of purpose, and I need prosperity. And right after that, I had the idea to take a flying lesson. I didn't think it was a good idea at the time. Well, this is terrible. I don't have any income coming in. I'm obviously dealing with some difficult challenges. But I went to my wife and I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and I want to give it a try. She felt good about it after praying about it. And so I took my first flying lesson. And Aaron, maybe you probably remember your discovery flight, but I will never forget, I know what plane I was in. It was 774 Lima Papa, little Cessna 172 at Falcon Field, rolling out onto the runway. And like as soon as that plane took off, it felt like my world changed. It felt like the problems that I was experiencing mentally and emotionally at the time stayed on the ground, and the rest of me went up in the air with that plane. And I, I mean, I threw myself into everything. Maybe I bought a plane right away, like within a few weeks of my first lesson. I was at the airport pretty much every day, threw myself into learning. And so I got licensed in, a little more than 2 months, private license, went on to get commercial and instrument rated. And I did, you know, in the 2 years since I started flying, I think I've just passed the 700-hour mark. So I've spent a lot of time in the airplane. And for me, a lot of that was so therapeutic and healing for me. So that's really how I got into flying. I know it's not conventional, but it has changed everything for me. And once I recognized the power that was there for me, I wanted to share that with other people. So I started volunteering for air charities and doing outreach and public speaking for Angel Flight West. And that has grown into an absolute obsession, passion for me. I love speaking about that charity. I love the experiences that I get serving with them. And it's changing my kids' life. Now I've got a son who's training, and yeah, aviation is, in fact, when I came home from that first lesson, I walked in the door and my wife took one look at me and she said, "You found your thing today, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And she could just see on my face that something had changed. So she still doesn't love flying, but I think one of the great things about our relationship is she doesn't love flying, but she knows I do. And so she supports me in it. And I don't love gardening, but I know that she does. So if she's got an unlimited plant budget for our house, she can do whatever she wants with the garden. So, she plays with her plants. I play with my airplanes, and together that works out pretty good.
That's amazing, man. First of all, I love the dynamic with you and your wife, like supporting each other. And I think, so much of what, as entrepreneurs, we almost kind of crave some support because a lot of times we're on an island kind of figuring stuff out. And then having that support at home and having like just a way that you were able to kind of, go to your wife and say, "Hey, I really think I need to do this." And instead of like, trying to convince you otherwise, that, gave you the go ahead and you felt like you could do it. And that just makes everything just feel so much better, instead of having to try to like convince and, like, especially with flying, I'm just with you. Like, it's hard to explain why it is so like therapeutic, and trying to explain that to someone who doesn't fly is impossible. But there is something about just being up there, like being full control, being like just completely focused on the machine and just kind of like out in nature in that sense. Like there's nothing else going on in the world. I'm with you, man, 100% on that. That's really cool.
I think if I could attempt to explain what that is, at least for me, the first word that comes to mind is perspective, right? As every stage of flight, your perspective changes. When you pull out on the runway for takeoff, you've got this, you're totally focused on that white line in front of you and flying down that line and your airspeed. And then as you lift off, now the view begins to expand, the horizon expands. And for me, I get up there and I feel there's always a couple of things that happen. If I'm flying around Phoenix or over San Diego, it's just like, wow, look at all the opportunity down there. There's just so much opportunity in real estate, right? That's what I'm looking at. But the other thing that happens is, again, whatever problems I have, they have to stay on the ground because you have to focus on what you're doing up there. So it forces you into a shift of mind. And, I think that practice and for me, it's really meditative. I have some soundtracks that I'll put on to pipe through my headset, depending on what kind of mood I'm in. It may be rock and roll or it might be some classical music if I'm just needed to chill out and relax. But no matter what, it's therapeutic.
Very cool. What about what would you say to like the other guys out there who are like thinking about learning to fly? Like, like there's a couple guys in my GoPod that have kind of thought about it, but it seems like it's kind of a difficult thing to, I don't know, pull the trigger on or commit to, or, what do you say to the guys that are kind of like on the fence, or maybe like they're a little bit afraid to talk to their wife about it or something like that? Like, what would you recommend to potential pilots out there?
Yeah, well, the wife's problem, I'm not going to be able to solve that one, right? That's it. that's beyond my training and ability is, and I'm really blessed that way that my wife is supportive or that none of this would be possible. She's been very tolerant as I pursued that and bought different airplanes and sold different airplanes and continue to have a vision board with other airplanes on it. So
Sorry to interrupt you, but I gotta, what's a couple of those airplanes on the vision boards? What do you got on there?
yeah, so the next step will be an A36 or a B36. I want the 6 plays, the capability, the speed. There's a great group of pilots here that they all fly bonanzas. They all fly from October until May. They go once a month and they fly doctors down to Mexico for those doctors to provide free services. And I'm fluent in Spanish and didn't know that they were doing this. So I'm looking forward to that this year to be able to do it. But I'd like a little bit more capable airplane to do that. And, the justification is I need the tax write-off. So, we've got to do something with the money. So we might as well buy an airplane to offset some of the taxes. That's the story. I'm sticking to it anyway. Yeah, but to address, and I don't think it's just flying. I think with, for you and for me, it was something that we always wanted to do. And there was something that just called to us about it. And so I think, for some people that's hiking mountains or, other types of adventures or luxury travel or whatever it is. And one of the biggest realizations for me in the last 3 years is I've rebuilt my life from the ground up has been allowing myself or giving myself permission to be happy and to have experiences that are enjoyable like that. This is something that I could have done and probably should have done 20 years ago. And I almost shudder to think what opportunities I missed out in that time period. Flying has been the best networking activity for my business that I've ever run into. And I never knew that was a part of it. But, and if you haven't tapped into this, I'll give you the secret now. But if I'm at a conference and there's somebody that I want to talk to, if I go to that person and I say, hey, Aaron, this conference has been awesome. I'd love to connect with you again. What if we met at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning and we spent like 5 hours together and we could just have a conversation? That's going to be a hard no. Like nobody's going to do that. But if I say, hey, Aaron, I don't know if you knew this, but I'm a pilot and I own a plane and I was planning on flying up to Sedona on Saturday morning. We'd want to leave around 6 and we'll watch the sunrise. We'll fly around the airport. There's an awesome cafe up there with a great chef. We can fly in and have some breakfast. I'd love to get to know you and do that with you. Nobody says no. Nobody says no to that. And if they do, it's just, I can't do it this week. What about next week? Or can I bring a friend? And that has opened up so many doors. And the other thing it does is no matter who you are, what you do, if you're networking, you need to set yourself apart in some way from everybody else in that room for people to remember you. And the easiest way to do that, at least for me, is I make sure that everybody knows that I'm a pilot because most of the time I'm the only one in the room. There's a lot of other guys raising capital. There's a lot of other guys investing in real estate. There's not very many other guys that are flying airplanes. And if they are, I want to meet them too because you have an instant connection, right? And so I never expected that to be the case, but that has been so fun to explore the power of making, just being different and then using that difference to provide real value and service to other people.
Amazing, man. I can't wait to do that. And like, I finally figured out like a really cool Philly skyline run. It's kind of like low and under the airspace that actually another GoPro kind of showed me. And like, that's been my go-to. And you're so right though. Like there aren't a lot of other things. Yeah. Like getting someone to like spend time with you and have a conversation. But yeah, if you want to spend time with me and we're doing something pretty epic, that makes it a lot easier. And two, I think like what's so fun about what we do is that you can connect your like interests, your passions with business. Like that's like ideal, like if you can get an investor that wants to go flying with you, like, yeah, that's like a bond that's like so much different than, hey, I give you money, you give me back money. And like, this is a transactional relationship. So like just that,
Yeah.
building things. And I don't think it's like limited to flying at all. Like people who, love to play or passionate about playing pool, like if you can find a bunch of investors or a bunch of business partners that are in the same passion, that just makes business way more fun.
Yeah. And I think at the heart of that, right, is if you lead with what can I give in this relationship rather than what can I get out of it, then you're always going to win. And so that may be that you love pickleball or golf or hiking or whatever it is. For us, it happens to be airplanes, and you can offer somebody an experience that a lot of times, people have dreamed about flying since people were walking around on the earth, right? And so to be able to enjoy that myself, but then to be able to give that to someone else is so powerful. And yeah, I'm fortunate where I'm at. You can get to Sedona, which is just one of the most beautiful places in the world in like 35 minutes. The Grand Canyon, you can take somebody up and fly over the Grand Canyon. And if I'm in San Diego and flying down the coast and up through the San Diego harbor, there's almost nothing better. You fly out to Catalina Island. There's endless adventure, right?
Yeah, you're an aviation mecca over there, man. Yeah, I'm here in Philly. We got a lot of thunderstorms in the summertime, and it's 2 degrees in the wintertime, and yeah, you probably have like 250 like clear days or something like that per year, and a little bit more of a battle over here, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things on my bucket list is going up the New York City exclusion, which is you can fly at like 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet along the Hudson. And I just want to take like an instructor up with me first, but then that'll be like a great thing to do. It's just a cool thing that's about a 30-minute flight for me from where I am. So that's awesome.
That would be magical.
So tell me about like how you got involved with Angel Flight, and if you want to just kind of share and like kind of your perspective on giving back and kind of using aviation to do that.
Yeah. So once, I guess really just the feeling that I got from being up in the air, I wanted to be able to share that with other people. And so I just started Googling aviation charities. I didn't even know what might exist. And I discovered Angel Flight West, signed up, and, I'll never forget the first mission that I flew for them. So Angel Flight West is a nonprofit. There's about 2,000 volunteer pilots, and our primary mission is providing free air transportation for people in need of medical care far from home. And so that can be burn victims traveling for specialized care. It can be transplant patients. It can be for a lot of cancer patients, but really any medical issue where somebody's traveling to receive that care, we can help alleviate the cost and the burden of that travel. So my first flight was with an 18-year-old kid named Bradley. Bradley was 15 when he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and his family happens to live 5 to 6 hours away from the Children's Hospital. And so for 3 days a week, his mom would load him up in the car and drive 5 hours to Phoenix Children's Hospital, wait for his treatment to get done, and then drive home to be with the other 2 kids. And they wore out 3 cars. So financially, it's crushing them. From a recovery standpoint for Bradley, obviously not ideal. You're spending a ton of time on the road. Also for the family financially, mom now can't work because she's spending all this time on the road. And now you've got a mom that's in a high stress situation who's exhausted, driving 10 hours 3 times a week, 30 hours on the road. So when they discovered Angel Flight West and we started flying, my flight from Deer Valley Airport to where he lives is an hour and 15 minutes. So they can sleep in, they get to their appointment. We provide the transportation not only to Phoenix, but then from the airport to the hospital and back. And then we get them back home. And so for their recovery, for their finances, like it's a life-changing event. And if you think that getting in an airplane and flying changes something in you on its own, and you get an 18-year-old kid in your airplane who, on that appointment, he happened to be traveling to find out if they'd even be able to continue treatment. He was looking at the end of his life. And talk about just putting life into perspective. All of a sudden, whatever problems I thought I had that day, are pretty small in comparison. Oh man, I didn't buy the house I was trying to get, or the house fell out of contract. Wow. Yeah, not really a problem, right? That's an inconvenience. And that just happens over and over again. You form lifetime relationships with these people because you're providing a service, you're changing their life, and they're changing mine. The most recent flight that I did was a lady that, 71-year-old lady in Ely, Nevada, whose son was dying in a hospital in Las Vegas. And due to some personal disabilities, she couldn't drive to be there. And I was fortunate to be able to fly up there, pick her up, and get her to Las Vegas in time where she could spend the last few moments of her son's life with him at the hospital that she would have missed otherwise. And so there's these things that they change me. Like I know that we're doing a service for people, but it has so deeply affected me in so many ways. And we're only serving, we've got 2,000 pilots that volunteer. The organization is incredible. Our pilots last year donated 4 times more than all of the donations we received to operate the charity. So we operate on about a $2 million budget. Our pilots donated over $8 million in services last year. And we're only serving maybe 5 to 10% of the people that we could be. So I spend a lot of time reaching out to hospitals and cancer treatment centers and other specialty care places to let people know about the opportunity that we have. We also do flights for victims of domestic violence and abuse so that we can get them away from the people that are persecuting them. We do flights for active duty and retired military personnel and all kinds of other compelling human needs. It's transformational, and that's nationwide. Angel Flight West is nationwide, so pilots anywhere can enjoy that opportunity.
Yeah, it gave me chills, man. I think perspective is incredible, and what what an opportunity it is for you to give back, and yeah, I mean, both those stories, young and old, and kind of everyone needs help, and being able to use the airplane as a tool, and like you're being able to pilot it, that skill that you've been able to obtain too, and using that's incredible, man. So I know as soon as I get my IFR, which I keep putting on and I keep delaying, but I almost feel like that needs to be hey, I got to get my IFR because I gotta join Angel Flight. It's almost like more of a reason to get it quicker than it is like just so I can have the rating. Cause it's like, now I really do want to be a part of Angel Flight and just be able to just help people in that capacity. That's incredible.
It's life-changing, or it has been for me. And I think that goes back to, you asked, what about guys that have wanted to fly and aren't doing it? Well, I think that giving yourself permission to have those experiences, but then also, recognizing that it goes way beyond just, hey, I want to go up an airplane and fly around. Like, you can serve in this way. The flights that I'll be doing to Mexico is another example of that. It can expand your relationships. It can expand business opportunities. Like, if flying is an expensive choice, but the return that I'm getting in joy and in business opportunities and building relationships is exponentially greater than anything I've ever spent on airplanes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's like private aviation almost has a sexiness with it that's like, yeah, all the wealthy guys are flying their jets down to Florida and whatever. And I think that, yeah, there is that opportunity. Yeah, if you have a plane, yeah, you can pack up and pretty much go and you have that incredible freedom to do that. But I think if you also combine that, wow, look what else you can do. Look what else other things you can do to give back. And then now this is more than just like a luxury, but like this is a tool to help and support your community and just tons and tons of people. I think there's times for me, and even like the last few weeks, it's like, all right, well, I want a bigger plane so I can take my family and I can take myself, but it's like, wow, if I get a bigger plane and I have more seats, I can probably take a family that needs medical treatment, or like, you can take, a mother and her 2 sons or something like that. Or, I even know that there's organizations out there that fly dogs and animals. Yeah. And so there's a lot of other, things you can do. So it's like, I think shifting that perspective of like, yeah, I really want this for me. It's like, all right, I want this because it'll help my life, but also it's a tool for me to give back. And so I thank you very much for kind of helping me even today, like kind of shifting that perspective of what aviation can do.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a life-changing experience, no matter how you use it. And I think that's just real closely tied to, I think there's a perception sometimes that just like what you expressed, right? Like the wealthy are just out having a good time or whatever. I had a neighbor who reached out to me, knew that I was doing angel flights, and his wife needed a liver transplant. She was going to die in the hospital in Phoenix. And the only hospital that would do or could do the surgery was in Florida. And so, they reached out. That's a farther flight than what Angel Flight West could handle. But through some of his personal contacts and mine, we were able to find somebody that had a private jet that was able to take them in her condition and donate that time to get them where they needed to go. And so, this is why for me, pursuing these business opportunities and growing financially is so powerful. It's not like I really don't need anything more than what I have right now, luxury wise, outside of a faster airplane anyway, but the ability then to impact the number of lives that you can touch increases as well. Now, through the outreach that I was doing, I met a lady here in Phoenix who, after her daughter and husband both passed away within a year of different cancers, she started an organization here in town that she's now helping 2,000 people in Arizona with their cancer treatments. And she wouldn't be in a position to do that if she hadn't succeeded financially. But because she had those resources and now she has the heart for a cause, she's changing the lives of literally thousands of kids across Arizona.
Yeah, man. It's like a bomb's got to drop on that one, right? That's great. Love it, man. You got to be successful so you can kind of, widen that impact that you can do. So very cool. I'm going to just close this with what's on your bucket list. So we talked about a couple of airplanes. And I guess too, another question I got to ask is what's your favorite fly-in destination? And then what's on your bucket list, or do you have any bucket list fly-in destinations?
Yeah. So current favorite places. I love the Sedona Airport for a lot of different reasons. I love flying into Catalina. That's been super enjoyable. I flew into Bryce Canyon Airport not that long ago. That was gorgeous. I would love to fly to the Bahamas for that experience. I'm really looking forward to these flights into Mexico for a totally different reason, to leaving the country. And I don't know, that just sounds super exciting to me. So I would say that, that's definitely aviation bucket list. And actually, one of the bucket list ideas that I have that combines aviation is I would love just to take one of my kids and draw a circle of, 600 miles, that's a 4-hour flight, and just say, pick somewhere on that arc and let's go there and fly there, have whatever adventure we're going to have, then wake up the next morning and do it again. I'd love to take like a week to do that and just see where we end up. So it's really the journey that I look forward to. And I'd love to go to Oshkosh. I think that would be amazing. So there's a lot there. Outside of that bucket list, really, this year is my wife and I's 25th wedding anniversary. We've never been to Hawaii. So got a few business transactions that if they go the right way, what I would love to be able to do is take all of my kids and spend 2 weeks in Hawaii and just celebrate the journey that we've been on the last few years, and it really kind of bury some of the grief that we've had and celebrate that together. And I just see that as an opportunity of turning a new page for the entire family.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm going to be rooting big time for those deals to close and make sure you get your whole fam out. That's you guys are going to have a few rows. That's cool. A few rows in the airplane over there. That's very cool. So definitely good luck. That sounds fun. Makes you take a lot of pics.
It might be cheaper to charter at that point, right? With the 11 hours now.
Incredible. Awesome, Al. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And it was a pleasure kind of learning about your business and aviation and your family, and definitely rooting for you and looking forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, likewise. We'll meet up somewhere in the middle of the country and go. Are you flying to Georgia?
No, I'm going with my wife, and we're flying commercial down there.
Okay.
And I know I thought about it, but I'm not. So
okay. Well, we'll find a flying adventure to do.
I got to get that. I got to get that IFR, man. I got to get that IFR. So it makes this like a no brainer for me. So yeah, you can help hold me accountable, in our little pilot calls, and we'll.
All right. I'm happy to do that.
But thanks a lot. I definitely, if people want to, reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah. Easy to find on LinkedIn, the Alan Underwood on LinkedIn. So I think Instagram's the same thing. You can find me on Facebook too, or, our fund site is mmtmgrp.com, and they can reach out to me there. So happy to have a conversation about aviation or investing in real estate.
Awesome, man. Great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. It's been wonderful.